Hi guys, here we are with Jodi Gregory. Jodi Gregory it was our speaker for the November meetup that we had at TRIA. I wanted to invite her for this podcast, for this speaking event, and kind of recap here with you online on the social media or wherever you see this, kind of her presentation. Jodi, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for having me, my dear.
Hey, I love always talking to you. You're my business partner for how many years now?
Ooh, I think we're going into 6 next year.
6 years. Feels like 3
Wow,
months.
time is
But we went
wild.
through a
I
lot
know.
together.
We
And
did.
Jodi, tell me a little bit more about the topic that you spoke about in November, and how did you come up with that topic?
Yeah, we the title essentially was around value unveiled, and it's really highlighting value proposition. But I think the the body of it was about core values and time optimization, with that core value being the foundation of how we move in business, in leadership, and all of these things. There's a saying: as we value, we lead. So depending on what your core values are, will dictate the type of leader and business individual, entrepreneur that you are. And so as a result of that, we highlighted what's each's value prop and how do you present that, especially in the real estate community, for those coming in, even those seasoned investors. So that was the baseline of it all.
Yeah, and it was as you have done over the last 6 years, adding incredible value on that, and it really opened a lot of eyes of the people that were in the room. We had over 80 people there, and a lot of question about how do you value time, and how do you go about it. And it's something you're teaching me every day, because if it was up to me, we talk day and night. But there are certain times that I'm allowed to talk to Jodi. Jodi, before we really dive into the presentation, can you give me a little bit of a background of yourself? Who is Jodi Gregory? What is Jodi Gregory doing?
Love these questions. I would say I could give you the personal and the professional. I am born and raised in Jamaica, born of immigrant parents. Came to the States going into 4th grade, and been here ever since. Majority of my time was spent in Florida. Fast forward to college at University of South Florida, and then following college, started my own fitness company, and then realizing not necessarily my ministry for the rest of my life, just due to my makeup and what is it that I wanted out of life, and I enjoyed it, and it was with ease, realizing though that I wanted more. And so after some deep research and inner reflection, looked into the military, and it seemed like a fitting adventure. And as soon as I got to boot camp, while some may have a completely opposite experience, mine was very much, this is where I'm supposed to be. And then, and that was all she wrote from there. So military, entered that around 25. I've been in now going into 16 years. So from there, I would say about 2018, 2019 was the first time I decided to use my VA loan. Lesson learned, won't wait that long. Next time for anything that I instill in my children. And then started the real estate journey in 2019 with my first VA purchase. And then from there, just kind of networking, getting into the weeds of it. And that's how Eric and I stumbled upon each other, by the grace of the universe, allowing our paths to cross. And and I'm sure we'll talk about all of those years to come as we partnered.
Yeah. And not surprising that you like boot camp the most. Knowing you don't shy away from a challenge. And when things get rough, you always are in your best and your best element. So not how surprised there. Absolutely not. So tell me a little bit, what I want to do in this podcast here is I want to unveil, I want to talk about your presentation. How do you value time? How do you proposition time? How do you position your time, and how do you go about it? And then I want to dive into your real estate journey. How are you managing it now, and stuff like that. So when you look at time, what are some of the values that you put in there, or how do you prioritize? Hey, you are in the army, you are in real estate, you have your personal life, you have your. I know personally that you workout 6 times a week, 7 times a week.
Yeah.
How do you do all of those things? There's people that are really struggling with. I'm in a W-2 right now. I really want to go into real estate, but some of the excuses that we hear is I am too busy. Right?
Yeah, we're always
How,
going to be too busy.
yeah. How like there's
Yeah.
nobody else. I mean, you can have an excuse that you're too busy with the army, right? So
Yeah.
how do you overcome that, and how do you prioritize your time?
Yeah, I mean, our core values are the foundation of our actions, right? So they're the guiding principles of our decisions and behaviors, and they help us stay grounded and purposeful. So I think one, it's discipline. I think folks might have a adverseness to discipline. You know, they think of it as a negative connotation. I think simply due to restriction or I can't have this or that.
Yeah.
Discipline for me has always been something that has been instilled in me, but not in a negative way. I think we can, and also I'm a hopeless optimist. So like, I'm always going to find the silver lining, even in the most turbulent times. So I think understanding that there's never going to be enough time ever. And it's what you prioritize at the end of the day. And I think that's why when we talked about core values, it's once you understand your core values and what's true to you, then you can develop the course of action or the plan that's fitting to that versus just kind of from a empty blank space, just saying, hey, I'm going to start working out. I'm going to do it for 3 weeks. I'm going to do it for 120 days without any foundation of where that motivation or where that purpose is coming from. I think the two key elements to answer your question is discipline and prioritization. So
How did you how do you come up with your core values, right? Like how did you do that for yourself, or how would you recommend somebody like myself to come up, and do you meditate on that, or do you have a coach for that? Do you read books on that? How do you come up with that?
I think all of that you just said. Meditation for me is a core element of my everyday, and prayer. I think prayer is having conversations with God. I might not be religious, but I am wholeheartedly spiritual. I believe in the Trinity. I believe in God. I believe in universal, law of attraction and all those things. And so for me, meditation is just key. But for kind of, I'll provide kind of two avenues. There's things that I've done. There's these little cards where they have it's like a stack of core values, right? And it's a little game you can play with yourself. You have 10 seconds to pick the first 10 things that you think resonate or of value to you. And then you just take the other 100 cards and put them away. So it's family, it's wealth, it's peace, it's authenticity, it's all of these things. But it's like you see it and you're like, oh, that's important to me. And then you do it 3 iterations and you come down to the final, I think 4 or 5. And those are the things that you absolutely, without a doubt, cannot move in this world without, right? So that's a very like fun way to do it. For me, it is prayer, which is my conversations with God. So I am talking to or in conversation with, and then it's meditation following, which is receiving. So now I've expressed this. Now let me just sit and receive what it is I meant. And for some, it's like, oh, I can't meditate. I need to silence my mind. You don't silence it completely. I don't even think that's possible. I don't know. But it's just quieting the mind and understanding like, okay, like this resonates with me. This is what's most important to me. And they're ever changing. I think this idea that it's going to be the same forever, it's not. You have your beautiful family, who I love those babies so much. And while family is of importance to me and one of my core values, it is definitely going to shift when I have kids. So there's a few ways to do it, but I think sitting in an element where you're able to receive is one that I would promote to others, because you can't really reach that if you're always on the go. Like,
yeah,
you just can't.
Yeah, you got to sit down and listen to yourself and let your thoughts be your thoughts. And
Yeah,
I like that game as well. I've never done it. I do it once a week. I do my goal setting for the week. I do the prayer. I try to listen to the guidance on that as well. I do that on a daily basis, but once a week I try to sit down and write down my core values and then my goals for the week ahead. So like that, I might have to do that game. I really like that. Super.
Yeah, it's an easy way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me a little bit, how do you structure your day, right? Like when so you have your core values, you have your principle, you have your values. how do you go about your day? I know that you work in a very high stress environment, an environment that puts a lot of restrictions on you as far as what you can and can't do communication wise during the day, and in a lot of other ways. So how do you go about your day, and how are you still successful being in real estate, being in the army, being with your partner? How do you manage all of those key things?
Yeah, good question. It definitely is fluid. It's definitely, I know it was different 2 years ago than it is this year, right?
Mhm.
And so, like you said, my assignment prevents me from having access to my phone for 8 to 12 hours a day. So really, what can you get done in the other 4 or 5? Also, sleep is a priority, so you're rarely going to get me outside of a 7-hour window. But how I do that is I adjust it to what the chapter in my life looks like. So right now I'm limited on time, so I prioritize my tasks. I time block. I think it's a very underestimated thing to do. I avoid multitasking. We had this question by
Yeah.
one of our faves during the class,
Yeah.
and I don't think multitasking is impossible. I think it's the quality of work you get out of it. I can multitask and do many things. I can talk to you. I can drink water. I can be typing notes. But at the end of the day, something is going to not get the best of me.
Yeah.
So either the conversation or what I'm capturing. So it's just the quality of work, and then always be willing to adjust and adapt, and have grace. Like my daily regimen is pretty tight. And there's some days where work turns into 14 hours, or you and I need to hop on a call and time just needs to be made, or family takes priority. And so I have to just drop everything. So prioritize task, time block, avoid multitasking, and just be willing to adjust and adapt.
Awesome.
That's how I do it.
So what does your day look like? You wake up at 3:30, 4 o'clock?
4:30. Yeah,
4:30.
4:30. And if it will look earlier depending on how the day goes. So if I have to go into work at 07, then that takes away my morning block that I have for myself. So I'll just wake up earlier. But yeah, so 4:30, alarm goes off. Usually do a gratitude prayer before I get out of bed. So I'm usually out of bed between 4:45 and 5. My morning regimen looks like, a bunch of traditional Chinese medicine remedies, TCM. So, a lot of mushrooms and herbal remedies that I intake prior to my workouts, and beet juice, things like that. And then I pour my espresso and I sit and I pray for about 20 to 30 minutes, and then followed by meditation for about 15 minutes. And then I go into my workout for about 30 to 45, which puts me around like between 6:45 and 07. And then I have about 45 minutes to an hour to call my creative hour. And that's where I tackle everything that I need to do to set the tone for my day. So since I don't have access to my emails, I log into our Monday, which I'm sure we'll touch on a little bit. Make sure all the dashboards are updated, kind of check all the admin things, answer the emails that I need to. That's priority, and then go into the day and
Awesome.
then see what awaits me when I get out.
Awesome. So yeah, and with that, you already talked a little bit about Monday. So let's make slowly the shift over into real estate. So within time blocking and within all the goal setting, talk about managing that through a partnership, our professional partnership, right? When you have when you deal with partners, there were a lot of questions during your speaking about Monday. How do you manage Monday? And we'll get into that. But also there were questions about the partnership. Why does a partnership work? And why are you and I just so good in this partnership, right? Like, and we have said it before, the true yin and yang. And what do you look for, and how do you, like in the scheme of things, again with time blocking, but then also blocking the responsibilities, how do you manage partnerships, and what does a successful partnership look like?
I think a partnership is like any other relationship, marriage, friendship, whatever it is. It is a do your values align, back to core values, but do your values align. If you value money and I value people, and that's the primary value, those things don't necessarily marry together, because I'm always going to look to choose, like, how is this person doing? How are we affecting their quality of life? And that other person's going to look at, like, how we're going to make a buck, right? So I think at baseline, the values of partners have to align, at least the core values. Not all of them are going to align. So that's one. And like you said, there's a yin and yang. So I think in partnership, it's super important to be humble enough to recognize your weaknesses. What you're good at is what you're good at, and I respect you for that, and vice versa. And that's why you and I work so well. We shed everything, and you are my weaknesses, and I am yours. And so as a result, we marry up. And we have the respect element there. So, and trust. I think once you break that trust is when it starts to get a little squirrely and it crumbles. But I think we've been able to navigate some really challenging times. And I think the baseline values, respect, and trust that we have within one another is what carried us through it.
Yeah. So this trust, and how about, what do you feel? How do you feel by staying in your lane? Is that the trust and the respect that you mean with that?
Yeah, I think the openness to be able to have those dialogues with your partner are really important. But yeah, absolutely. I think, gosh, what's that saying? It's like something along like stay in your own swim lane, right? Like you have to be able to trust your partner enough to not put your foot in their waters, because at the end of the day, I know you do it better, whatever that thing is. And I do it better. But that doesn't mean that we can't have dialogue about how we do it, or maybe we can think about something else. Like there's just always creative elements that can be inserted along the way. And I think trusting the other's viewpoint is important, and then just talk it out. It might get implemented, it might not.
Yeah, and to echo that, guys, my weaknesses are completely about forecasting financials and looking at the financials and being in the details. I like to run. I'm a dreamer. I like to dream about the future,
yes,
and Jodi keeps me grounded, and I respect her for that. I don't know anything about the financials. As a matter of fact, before we start this recording, I'm like, hey, can I get the monthly expenses and incomes come for you before? Like in the next week or so, because I really don't know it. And I trust her in that, but she trusts me in things that need to happen with properties. I'm the boots on the ground. I am in contact with do other things, and you got to respect each other in that.
Yeah. I mean, and to add to that though, the transparency is the while we have so much trust in each other in these arenas, there's accessibility and transparency, right? There's no world I'm holding information. I think we can all be guilty of that. Like, hold on to intellectual property or holding on to this thing that we've created versus disseminating or sharing it. You have access to the systems and the Mondays, so you can do it yourself, but there's just that trust in me, and I have access to our network on the ground in North Carolina, but I trust you to just, hey, like, this is a deal, let's work it out. And I'm going to take care of everything from there. Like you are the biz ops, you are capital raised, you are the face, you are the network. And so I trust those relationships and all of those elements that you build and bring to our company. So
thank you. And on top of that is I'm not sure if loyalty is the right word, but it is loyalty had to each other. So wanting to support the other to do better than he or she would be alone. Right? Like again, I want Jodi to be the best version of Jodi in our company, and if what do I need to do to support that? Right? What do I need to do to make her better? And that is coming from both Jodi and myself, and that's why this partnership is working out. And I had 8 businesses, and some of them I got rid of some business partners, not because there was no loyalty or there was no trust. It just we didn't align with our core values that Jodi talked about. I think that's where you have to start. You have to start with your core values. You have to start with trust, and from there you build a business. And sometimes the core values with my business partners didn't align, and we decided.
It's life, right?
Sorry?
It's life. It's just life. We're always figuring out. We dabble into relationships and, realize that this either does or doesn't work. And, just don't burn any bridges. and drive on.
And if a partnership doesn't work out, from all my partners that I didn't work out with, I am tremendous thankful because they taught me so much, and
Yeah,
my business has pivoted because of them. And it can be seasonal, or it can be something like what Jodi and I have. It can be for multiple years and for multiple years to come, right? But don't
yeah,
if a partnership is seasonal or just temporarily, look at it. What Jodi said earlier is like always look at the bright side. What is the takeaway from that, and what did you take away from that? And I learned tremendous
yeah,
amount of things from all my partners. So yeah.
yeah, yeah. There's relationships are a reason, a season, or a lifetime. So whether they come to teach you something, whether it's just meant to serve a short time purpose or a lifetime because you are intentionally building a legacy together, that's it. So
Absolutely. Yeah. So you mentioned real estate. You mentioned that. So we mentioned earlier that you are in charge of all the financials. And
mhm,
while you talk, I'll start sharing my screen because I think we're going to make a pivot here to Monday. But how do you
yeah.
manage your financials? What do you look at, and what is the data input that you do?
So if we're just talking about once we acquisition the property and manage the portfolio, there is, and I'm not sure if I don't know if it's populated yet, but when we look at the property, we look at what we're in it for, right? The loan amount against like market value. And then we factor in all our OE to include some buffers. I am very conservative in our numbers. So before we even reach that potential net income, our operating expenses look like, insurance, taxes, any type of capital X. And then we always factor in the, oh goodness, it's escaping me, some kind of ancillary charges are buffers. And then we can get to a net income. From that net income, I take an additional kind of 20% off top just to be safe. And that's just a baseline of how I like to look at them. And then when we look at it, depending on where that net goal number falls, at the end of each year, right now we're in it, I'll do a PAR, portfolio assessment review. And we'll get to understand how our properties are performing financially, fiscally. And so from there, we drive like, hey, do we want to offload these based on these numbers? But that's just a baseline of kind of how we look at each line item in our portfolio.
Whew, there was a lot to unpack. Even my head was spinning. So talk about PAR. We are now in the PAR.
Yeah. So also, I am military, and so if there's anything we can make an acronym out of, we are the ones to do it. So
we already discovered when
yeah.
you said earlier 07 hours. I'm like, that's an army
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. So I just it's essentially I portfolio assessment review, and we can call it someone else. We can call it portfolio annual review, however you want to look at it. Either way, it's something that I do at the end of the year, and it allows Eric and I to have that final discussion for that annual meeting to decide, do we want to offload these properties? How are these properties performing? Are they yielding the returns that we agreed or we kind of laid out for ourselves? Do we need a shift? Yeah. So
Awesome.
it's pretty robust, but yeah, another day.
Well, you introduced that to me. Tell me what high level, real quick. What does PAR include? What do you when you look at a property? How do you how do you determine this one has to go, but this one can stay? So what is the PAR that you look at for?
Yeah, good question, and it's something that you and I can probably want to just tap in every couple of years and adjust. But how it started was, this is what we have. We look at what's owed on the property. We look at what equity we have to date. I also factor in the liens that we have in it. And then I take those baseline elements and then I side by side it with current rents. I look at an annual review of any expenses we've had, any turnover repairs, ancillary repairs, things like that. And then those are the financial numbers that we bring in. Then I kind of go through each property management report for that property, and I look at the tenant kind of history and late payments, what those requests and repairs look like, and kind of just weigh out is it worth it? Like, is
Yeah.
it worth our time, our financial responsibility in comparison to what we may hold in equity or what we are yielding monthly, annually against that property? And then it's just a decision that you and I generally make. At the end of the day, is it compromising us, or is it feeding us?
So you start doing something that a lot of people had questions about. You are recording on a monthly basis what each property management spends our money on, like on repairs, on stuff like that.
Yeah.
Why do you do that? How do you do that? And what was the discovery that you find out of that? How? Why? Oh my gosh! I should learn how to ask one question. But how, why, and what was the discovery? How, why, and what?
We'll go backwards. So the
Yeah.
discovery was you and I had an experience with a specific property management company that, and at the time, our management system wasn't as robust as it was.
Yeah.
And so it took us about 5 to 6 months to realize that they were pocketing our money, and lying about where those funds were going. And when having done the math, that accumulated to about close to like $82,000 that just happened to be paid out, and we didn't catch, simply due to the number of properties that we had in that market at that time. And just small dollars add up. So 500 here, 800 here, 1,000 there, and times that by 35 plus properties. It's easy to achieve that number in a short period of months. So once we figured that out, we pivoted. And so that's the discovery, and the why we do it is simply so that never happens again, right? And so now it also introduces more data points to the par. So I can look at these properties, I can filter them out, and I can say, hey, we spent $27,000 on property repairs for this specific one, and this year we've yielded $36,000 for gross income. And then once we factor out those operating expenses in general, taxes, insurance, CapEx, and all of that, then we can get a rough idea of, hey, this is what we're yielding from this property. Do we want to keep it? And let's talk about tenant performance and market itself, how it's performing based on new elements that are going to be introduced just simply by economics. And so that is the why. So essentially that doesn't happen again.
Awesome.
And then the how, through Monday.
We
built a dashboard.
Yeah, so guys, real quick, and this is no promotion for Monday or whatsoever. I showed you really earlier when she was already talking about it, but we are using Monday. Jodi is basically in charge of Monday. We go both in here, but all the data about all our rentals is accessible here. We have meetings, minutes. We have contractors here. We have quarterly reports. You can basically tailor Monday to whatever you want to do. Here is where Jodi keeps track of all what comes in and what goes out. And again, it's not my strong suit. It is something that Jodi does. I look at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. Thank God for Jodi that she's on the team, because I would have never done it. I would have probably never discovered that a property manager was pocketing money by doing repairs. So there were no repairs, but there was always a lot of the same repairs. So when we start diving into it, we discovered that. Jodi, what is your biggest learning or your biggest takeaway? Hold on. What is your biggest one-liner or one piece of advice for people that are looking to get started in real estate?
It's a good one. I don't think it's going to be my forever one, but I think coming into it, you get so excited. You're so excited about, especially me, like I'm data driven, I'm numbers driven. And so when I saw the possibility of what real estate could yield me financially, I was all in. I think patience and being intentional in how you enter the field is so important. If I didn't have the vision or the intention going into it, when I sat down with you, it would have just been a one-sided transfer of information. You would have told me all of the things that you do and how you can do it, and it would have meant nothing at the end of the day, because I wouldn't have known what to do with it. And I think that's what we do. We come in and we're like, I'm going to be a wholesaler. I'm going to be an investor. I'm going to be a developer. I'm going to be this. I'm going to be that. And it's like, yeah, you can dabble your foot in the water to see what you really want. At the end of the day, be intentional with how you approach it, and know what is true to you, and know what it is that you want out of this experience. And I think everything else will unfold from there.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Because I do see a lot of our members get so caught up in the web, spider web, whatever you want to call it. Because there's wholesale, there's rentals, there's storage units, there's apartment buildings. It's brilliant what Jodi says. Be intentional. What do you want to do? You want to grow a rental portfolio and flip, or do you want to be intentional? Be intentional with the market that you're going to target. Just be very intentional, because otherwise, Jodi, what did you say? You're a jack of all trades, but a
master of nothing.
Exactly. There you go. Awesome.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, Jodi. One last question I had for you. What is your goal in 2025? What lies ahead for you? Where are you heading in your real estate and
yeah, good question. Good question. I believe in universal alignment. As I mentioned earlier, I was on the walk with my spouse a few weeks ago, and she says, "Where do you want to go from here?" After being an agent this year in DC, I said, I think instead of taking the small bits and building to the like grand thing that I've envisioned, which is developing communities once I exit the military, I said I'm gonna really start diving in and getting myself plugged into the development world, and spend the next 1 to 5 years understanding how it works, understanding how it looks. And you know me, I am gonna turn every stone to understand something on a granular level before I execute. And my lovely partner that we have here today, Eric, sat across from me a month after that conversation and said, "Hey, we're going to go into development." And I'm like, "Oh, here we go, Lord." And two things happened for me. I was like, all right, universe, appreciate what's happening, because it's just happening all over again. I have this very calculated risk plan. And then there's Eric with his dreamer nature. And it's saying like, hey, let's just pull the trigger and go. And I'm like, hey, hold on a second. Let's just pull it back. And so we eventually find ourselves in a very centered space when we have those distinctly opposite approaches. So what I took away from it was like, why not now, and still move accordingly, right? I'm still not just going to dive all in with him, and he's not going to dive all in with me. And so I think we'll find some common ground in the future, and development looks like, more so than not, where the next chapter will be.
Yeah, and just to align or unpack a little bit what Jodi said there. It's in May, I want to touch base on the power of what Jodi said earlier in the presentation, and it's prayer or come up with your goals, or however, if you don't pray, however you do meditation or whatever you do. But I said in May, I'm more like Jodi is very calculated, and that's why I need Jodi in my businesses. That's why I need Jodi in my life, because I just say, okay, I'm going to do this, and if I fail, I learn something, and if I didn't, I'm going to try to figure out what I learned. So anyway, that being said, I said in one of the 3M meetings is I am a builder, right? Fake it until you make it. I am a builder, and now I have 2 pieces of land I own 2 pieces of land in downtown Raleigh where I'm building 5 houses. Numbers work out great. So I just, I'm learned from Jodi. You got to learn the numbers, and numbers work out great. So I'm just doing it. I'm just going to go do it. I'm going to learn it. And where Jodi comes in is she's more calculated. So once Jodi and I will start building, I know it's more calculated, it's different, and I already have some of the experience. I already have some of the network. So again, it's the yin and yang coming together and creating a beautiful goal together and a plan for the future. So again, with partnerships, with goals that you have, be loud, be bold, be creative about it, and you will see that other people. I'll tell everybody my goals, and it's not to brag, but it is I can tell my business partners, if I go to meetups, I be very intentional about mentioning my goals, because people can hold me accountable, but people can also help me going into the direction that we're looking to go. So here's just two beautiful ways of how two people are so completely different but come together,
Yeah.
and just align in goals and stuff like that. So
Very true, my friend, and very well said.
well, I
Very well
thank
said.
you for everything. This is, of course, a Thanksgiving week, so thank you for your friendship, thank you for your partnership, thank you for your time today. Just thank you for who you are and what you bring into my life. Thanks for your time here, and I hope that Tria gets to hear and see more of you in the future.
Thank you. I appreciate you. I love you. I respect you. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of the journey as we venture in.